David Guernsey, as we about to get started here and folks are getting online, it's incredible to be a part of this mission, serving with you as lead ambassador to the trust. Before we get started formally, we're going to let some folks get in on the line with us. Where are you today, and how is life treating you in this unusual, unprecedented situation?
I am in Essex, Connecticut, where our headquarters are. We have actually two people that work in Connecticut. We have another person that's remotely works in DC, who's our program director, and then in Fayetteville, we have another person that's our operations manager. However, the two people that are in this office, we're all technically working remotely, but I only live about a half a mile from this office, so that's why I come to the office, and I think it's okay to be here.
Well, the military doesn't sleep. Certainly the special forces don't. They're in action in probably 40 plus countries around the world. Probably 50, 60% of them are deployed right now as we speak. So certainly the trust isn't going to sleep because the work's not yet done.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Hey, there we go. Hey, Bob Pennington, good to see you, sir.
How you doing? You guys got me?
We got you. Good to see you. We can't hear you.
Is your mic mute? You got to unmute your mic.
Bob Pennington, we need you to unmute your mic so we can hear you. We can't hear you.
Microphone. Hold on, I'll text him. Hold on, guys.
Okay. You send him a quick text, and then David, we'll get started from you first, and you can share a little bit about the trust. But we are excited that many of you are on today. Thank you so much for taking some time. On behalf of the trust, as I mentioned, the soldiers are in full service on our behalf around the world, and we're going to hear a little bit about that here coming up. But 40 plus countries, a little over 6,000 special forces soldiers, and probably 60% of them are deployed right now. David, you shared with us where you're at. Perhaps you could just take a couple of minutes and share about the mission of the trust and what it is that you do to meet the needs of the soldiers, marriages, families. Kind of give those that are listening in, if they're not familiar with the trust, a little bit of your mission and what you do.
Thank you. We have 3 program areas that we focus on. I know we have some people that know what the trust does. We have some people that don't know, so I'm going to step back a little bit just to sort of give everybody a leveling field. There are about 6,500 Green Berets. About 50% are married, about 50% single soldiers. And if my statistics are wrong, I'm sure that Bob will correct me once he gets the microphone. At any one time, there's about 3,500 to 4,000 deployed around the country. And in any one night, there'll be in anywhere from 70 to 80 countries. And as Bob has expressed, over a year, they'll probably be in 125 countries. So the stress on the family is difficult, and that's where we focus. We focus on the family, and the 3 areas we focus on are family and community, education, motivation, and veterans and heritage. And we do educational grounds for spouses. Our biggest family and community issue is our retreats. Under veterans and heritage, we will provide a $2,500 grant to any veteran that is in need of some medical expense. Most of those grants are going to the Vietnam era individuals that are here. So that's a brief of what we do.
David, we're going to bring Bob here in just a moment into this conversation. What is it about the trust and this mission that gets you excited and that gets you so jacked up every day to say, I want to serve our troops? What is it about this mission for you that's so personal?
I think it's the Green Berets that actually serve. They're unselfish. They're the quiet professionals. I invite everybody on this call. We have times throughout the year that you can actually come to Fort Bragg and meet them one-on-one. And they do their mission. And I kind of equate it to Isaiah, where it says, the Lord says, who shall I send? And somebody stands up and says, me, I'll go. And that's really what Green Berets do. They really turn stuff down. And I think some of you know that Bob was on ODA 595, which the movie Horse Soldier was made. And as he has done, we're not going to get into that tonight, but I've heard him speak that, you know, the moment that happened, they said, when are we leaving? You know, when are we going? And so that's what draws me to it. And then the wives are just unbelievable. They're, you know, the 6 to 8 months, a year departed. Even when the Green Beret is back in country, they're out training for the next mission. And so it's honoring these people that defend the freedoms that we have.
Thank you, David. We'll come back to you in a moment. But Bob, we met the first time last June, and it was a special event at Robert Duvall's home in his barn. And you and Mark together shared a lot about your story and your journey after 9/11 going into Afghanistan. The Horse Soldier, in fact, I got a little, it's almost whiskey time.
Holy cow.
So Bob, share with those listening in a little bit about yourself and your time serving our country. We really want to honor you, so thank you for your service. But we want to get to know you and hear your heart, a little bit about your journey and what you did for us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You know, one of the things, though, that David brought up, he was talking about the 125 countries. I tell you what, it's only going to get tougher. And the reason for that is the recruitment is a little low. And because recruitment is low, the teams are smaller and they're more spread out. Now you've just increased the amount of teams that need to be pushed out into those areas. And so it's going to be even more stressful in the next coming years, especially this year. And of course, dealing with the coronavirus. But for myself, married, have have 3 sons, two stepsons. My lovely wife Lisa is working from home now, so kind of good, you know, because I'm doing little things around the house. I got a bunch of projects going on, so I pass by her, wave while she's on the phone doing teleconferences. But did over 30 years in the military, 26 as a Green Beret. Job titles went from a weapons sergeant to operations intelligence sergeant, and then moved on to become a warrant officer, assistant detachment commander, company operations warrant. Also did company commander time and was a senior warrant officer advisor for one of the battalions, like a command chief warrant officer. It's kind of funny how I fell into this, becoming a Green Beret. I tell this story once in a while, especially when I'm drinking a little bit of bourbon and we're sitting around the campfire talking. But when I was 7 years old, back in 1968, I watched a movie called The Green Berets with John Wayne. And I came home, I told my dad, hey, I'm going to be a Green Beret one day. And of course, he just laughed at me because he knew how tough that training would be. But I pursued my dream, and sure enough, guess what? Became a Green Beret and loved it. Deployed 14 times, 7 combat tours, 13 campaigns during that time. 5 were classified missions, and then 2 operational missions that kind of dealt with keeping the peace, but yet overwatching a time frame that may go into action again. So those were great deployments for me. Every time I went into those deployments, I actually learned more about myself, but also learned more about the men that I served with and their abilities and what they were all about. I can't stress how great Green Berets are. And, you know, now that I'm retired, that is one of the things that I miss the most, is the camaraderie that I had with those guys. Those guys were such heroes to me, all of them. It was especially the team 595, which we, on the early days of after 9/11, after the terrorist attacks, 595 got alerted and went into Afghanistan around October 19th. and conducted our textbook unconventional warfare. And we were there for about close to 3-4 months and defeated an army that was nearly 10,000 to 15,000. All across Afghanistan was probably the numbers were about 50,000. And I'm telling you, without those NCOs that we had that were there with us, as I was the deputy commander and Mark Nooch was the commander, I tell you what, we couldn't have done it. And I am so pleased to have served with those guys, served with all the men of 595, but through Special Forces, everyone that I've served with has been fantastic. And I'm so proud to have been a Green Beret.
Well, amen, and blessings to you. And again, thank you for your service and those as well. Taking it back to 9/11, what was it, about 3 or 4 weeks after that historic event, you and your team got called into Afghanistan. If I remember, there was an outpost where you guys all rendezvoused, and it was the Alamo of all names.
It was.
What
We infilled into the Alamo, and it was funny because as we briefed that before we went in, the commander, which was Colonel Mulholland, now Lieutenant General Mulholland retired, he goes, "Are you sure you want to call it the Alamo?" And we said, "Yeah, why not? I mean, come on, that's our stronghold. Once we hit the ground, if things go wrong, we're going to hold it."
What was the discussion like, Bob, with you and Mark? Mark was the commander then, and your team. There were 12 of you, and there you were dropped in, right behind. You were on the front. You were behind the lines, and there you were, and you were having a discussion, and you weren't exactly sure if there were 10 or 15,000 militia there that you were going to be in combat with. What was that discussion like, and what were the emotions that you were feeling just even at that time?
I mean, well, the biggest thing was just getting in there, just infilling with no problems, not getting shot down, because we actually did take fire. We talked to the Chinooks later on, the CH-47 pilots. Chief Gost was a great guy, and we sat down and we talked about that and the problems they had. They had difficulty getting over the terrain. They had difficulty with the weather. So we had a lot of factors that I'm surprised we got through to even get in and infill on the ground. But once we hit the ground, then it was, you're sitting there and the helicopter lands. Everyone jumps out, right? We set up our perimeter, and now it's all quiet. You're trying to pick up sounds and movement, and then of course we see these guys coming out of nowhere, and no one knows what's going on. and here it is, it's the agency guys that had come up to greet us, and then take us to actually meet some of the Afghans. Of course, I've got a rucksack that's about 150 pounds. I've got this little Afghan guy that walks up to me, and he's wanting to be a nice guy and grab my rucksack. And I said, "Hey man, just back off. This is my stuff." He goes, "No, I want to help you." And I said, because the interpreters told me, he goes, "Hey, he's just trying to help you." I said, "He can't even lift this. He weighs 100 pounds. And finally, I just gave it to him. And of course, the rucksack fell on him and he fell down on the ground. So I had to pick it up, put it back on my back. And I said, "See, it's a little heavy. Don't worry, it's okay." So
I got this.
And then we moved on to the Alamo. Now, in the movie, it depicts us moving for days, but really, it was only a half a mile. It was a half a mile trek in the evening, about 0200 in the morning. So.
And you and your team didn't have any hesitation. Sure, there was an anxiety, but certainly no fear. That's what you were trained to do. That was what you all felt like you were made to do.
I'm sure there was fear in everyone, a certain type of fear, but in the end, it was, hey, this is our mission, and we got called for this. This was handed to us, and we wanted it. we actually, when they came out and said, hey, you guys want this mission at the beginning, we said, absolutely, give it to us. But I'm sure there were other teams that said the same thing when it was time for them to go in. And there was teams after us. We actually went in simultaneously with triple nickel, 555. Of course, I have bragging rights over that, the team and I, because we landed first. We both went in the same time, but we landed first. They landed about an hour later. So I always come back to say, you know, we actually were the first team in. So little joking there, teams give each other a little crap,
No competition at all, I can sense.
just a little.
So, Bob, we'll come back to the rest of the story in a moment, but give us a quick snapshot to the troops, where they're currently serving during this current climate of COVID around the world. They're still in active duty. There's activity going on all around the world. And what's the emotion that's taking place with the families right now that are deployed, between husband, wife, and kids, and what's going on?
Yeah, and I've talked mainly to some of the contractors that I know. It is what they've told me. It's very difficult. It's very they've got a lot of control measures in place. I imagine because of that, the families are a little more worried, because the guys have to try and get some training in. And that's another problem, is how much training are they actually getting in just because of the virus itself? Or what are they limited to? I'm hoping they do the full gambit prior to any type of operational deployment. I would assume they are, but for that reason, they are probably more isolated, is what the word I'm getting. So they're pulled away from their families at an earlier time frame than they would normally be. And then they go through their training sessions and then pushed out into the deployment areas, wherever they're deployed to, whatever group they're from. So you got, and the groups, first, third, fifth, seventh, 10th. So, and then you have the two guard units.
David, I know
so to Bob's point, another thing that I get asked a lot is, what's the difference between a SEAL and a Green Beret? And they both are part of the Special Operations Command. There's also a Marine unit, and there's an Air Force unit in Special Operations. But the Green Berets are trained in unconventional warfare. And SEALs secure rooms, and Green Berets secure countries. And that is the quickest analogy. SEALs are direct action team. Green Berets have a direct action team as well. They have all sorts of other things, but they go in and embed themselves into the country and help the country with getting things back together. They ask, and Bob, I think this is correct, that you're welcome there to help train, and there you have special forces units in all of these countries, and you train them and you assist them in regulating the things that should be correct in those countries. I don't want to.
No, and that's perfect. And another part of this is, it's hard to explain to a new guy coming in as he goes through the Special Forces training, and that is, he is a master instructor. They actually believe that once they get there, their main goal is to do long range reconnaissance and then and then kick in doors, but that's not everything. They're master instructors. They have to instruct. There's 9 principal tasks within Special Forces. One of the main task itself is unconventional warfare. And they actually have to teach these guys all those elements once they get into that designated country. And so they have to accept the fact that they are master instructors, that is, and they're diplomats. And that's huge. Yeah. To put that aside, to go into a country to talk to a general or a some type of diplomat and let them know why they're there, what they can give them, and how it will assist them in their country building.
David, I know that the trust serves marriages and families, and there's a reunification initiative to really help families succeed. We'll get to that in just a moment, but there's something that's going on right now, which is the simplicity of care packages. The trust has been involved with just making sure that the troops that are deployed longer than they were expected are receiving some items that can just help them and be an encouragement to them. Tell us a little bit about
So
that.
we, for Giving Tuesday, that was last May 5th, we ran a COVID-19, and with all the money that was raised, we were going to send care packages over. Things like personal hygiene, wipes, books, just the whole spectrum, coffee machines, and many people, or there are some people over there that were scheduled to come back in March. Well, the Department of Defense has said no travel until June 30th. Their families that were what they call PCSing, they were going to a new station, that the movers had come up and picked all the stuff up, and they went to the hotel, and then they were told they can't move. So they've been in a hotel since March, and the Army's been good about picking up the extra tab because they get a week to move, and they get some expenses. Bob's probably an expert on that because he probably moved 22 times in his 30 years. I mean, seriously. But the point is that there are all these stressors. So we're trying, the good news is the APOs are still working, mail is still being delivered, and we're just trying to send a little bit of love to those people over there to say we're thinking about them. And there's some, and so that was what the cause was for last week.
That's great. So certainly if anybody wants to support that effort, they can go to the Special Forces Trust site and make a gift, or like I've done, is gone to my donor advised account, and you see the trust right there, and funds will hit your account within just a couple of days. But Bob, in all of your years of service, the challenges with marriage and family, and that step of reunification, how are you seeing the trust be a support to the families and the marriages today? Because you're interfacing with still a lot of active members. Tell us a little bit about what those experiences are like, and the value to the men and certainly the wives when they come back home.
Well, I don't see as many as the active guys around now, but what I do see is, David and I talk a lot, and we talk out some of these situations. Hey, how can we better support these people? Now, David just did something. Now, David, you just didn't you just help someone through the Benny Atkins?
Yeah. So Benny Atkins, Medal of Honor recipient. I don't know. There was a wonderful clip on Willie Geist on Sunday morning, but he died. Member of 5th Group, and his uniform that he got the Medal of Honor is going to 5th Group, which is at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, in their museum. And the family asked if we would pay for his uniform. So we are actually paying for his uniform and all the medals, and actually the same dress that he got when he got the Medal of Honor. And he will be buried in Arlington on August 17th. So that is how we reach out to families in that type of situation. Yes, Bob and I talk a lot.
Yeah, and that's huge actually, because the uniform itself, with the medals, the ribbons, there's patches that need to be sewed on, is actually very costly. It's very costly, and I believe David and them bought 2 uniforms to support the family, which was fantastic. And of course, one of the uniforms is going to 5th Group, and that is actually where I spent most of my time as a Green Beret. I spent almost 20 years in 5th Group before I left, and then went to training group at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and that's where I finished up my career and retired.
Bob, take us to the end of the story. You've got maybe 2 or 3 minutes. If you could just do a quick snapshot of your guys, your 12 of you were traveling there together in Afghanistan. Um, play it out a little bit and tell us what happened. How long were you there? And then you all came home.
Easy, easy. That's that. We can make this quick. So we hit the ground. We that morning we linked up with General Dostum. He came riding in. The information that we received about him was that he was diabetic. He walked with a limp. He had a heart attack. He was in bad shape. And of course, this guy comes riding in, jumps off his horse, looks like Santa Claus, walks over to us, sticks out his hand, starts shaking our hands, and he goes, "You guys ready to go into combat?" And we said, "That's what we trained our whole life for." Of course, I had already been to Desert Storm, and so we had 5 guys that had already seen combat action. So we're like, "Yeah, let's go." And at that time, we split into a team is 12 men, and so we split into 2 6-man sections. I took the B section because the deputy commander, and then of course Mark took the A section, and then rode horses up while I did took in some resupplies and some other things, some intel collection. And then we linked up later, called in a bunch of close air support. We actually ended up calling, I believe it was a record, and it still stands to this day, I believe, as a team conducted 300 sorties. We used every air asset that we had, F-16s, F-15s, 18s, B-1 bombers, B-2 bombers. B-52s were our favorite because they could come in, they could loiter for a long time and drop as many of the ordnance as we possibly could get from them. And other than that, we rode our horses through combat, went all the way up into Mazar Sharif, liberated that city. It was probably about a 100-mile trek, and along the route we liberated about 50 towns, villages, cities, and destroyed about 200 pieces of artillery, bunkers, tanks, trucks, and killed or captured over 5,000 of the Taliban. So that's a little bit.
Amen. Thank you, Bob. We appreciate your
Absolutely.
service, and I appreciate knowing you, and I appreciate our friendship that we've gotten to know one another over these last several months. And thank you for all that you've done on behalf of our country. And there's been a lot of sacrifices, but a lot of blessings, I'm sure, too.
Absolutely. And right now the transition for me has been to, and I always push this out to the other guys, take a chance, get out there. There's contracting jobs out there, but take a chance, get out there, succeed in business.
Give us 60 seconds on the whiskey. Give us 60 seconds on the horse soldier.
Business. My transition itself, of course, with other Green Berets and some Rangers, has been go out there, make a business grow. And we've done this through bourbon. And our bourbon has done very well right now. As a matter of fact, we have, and I wrote it down, we've got we're live on Thursday, May 21st, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're doing a virtual whiskey and war story. And this is going to come out of Florida. And so it'll be me, Mark, Scotty Neal, Billy Howell, who actually were on the Commander's Extremist Force. They went in a little after we did, but we're all together, and we're going to talk whiskey and war story and then do a tasting. So, people might want to go ahead and buy their whiskey and be on standby so they can drink with us and have a good time.
Well, David, I know that, David, you're going to close this out, but I'm going to read one thing that's on the back of the horse soldier bottle here.
Please.
It says, the United States of America was forged by pioneers, trailblazers, explorers, and warriors. In the American spirit of adventure, we proudly present Horse Soldier Bourbon Whiskey. Amen.
Hey, man.
David, how can we be aware of the trust, your needs? How can we support you? Because their work is not done, so that means that your work is not done, and we want to be a part of this journey with you.
Well, you can go to our website, specialforcescharitabletrust.org. We put out we don't influx people with a lot of emails, but we try to put out a update of what we're doing, support we're doing. We do have a very patriotic group of individuals. If you want more information, I know we have some new people on the call. We have some seasoned people on the phone call. You're welcome to email me, David at specialforcescharitabletrust.org. If you'd like to go to Fort Bragg or have a visit there or wherever you are in the country, we do different visits to different areas to introduce people to Green Berets. So I just thank you all for attending. I thank you all for, I see got some chat comments going up here. You know, Bob is a great person. And he, you know, there's hundreds of Green Berets that have done what Bob has done, but being the quiet professionals, they come home and they just keep on going. And this horse soldier was classified for what, 12 years, 13 years. And then, you know, a movie was made and there's a new book coming out that might be even more factual than the old book.
That's right.
It could be, right? So we have that to look for. So I just appreciate everybody taking 30 minutes. If you liked it, let us know. If you didn't like us, let us know. But we're just trying in the world we're living in to bring the two sides together.
And I'd like to add one more thing. David, on his site, they've actually brought stories of some of the Medal of Honor recipients that has actually been great reads. So if people want to get on that site, they can they'll pull up these great informational reads that people, you may not know these guys, Benny Atkins, Roger Donlin, and it would be superb to read.
Fabulous. Well, on behalf of the Special Forces Charitable Trust, thank you for joining in. David, we appreciate you grabbing the reins and leading. Appreciate you and your leadership. And then Bob Pennington, thank you, sir, for taking time to open up your heart and your stories to us today, because we've all been blessed. So appreciate those that have joined. Have a great evening and continue to be safe, and blessings to you all. Thank you so much.
God bless, guys.